we always said that Brexit was going to have a lot of strange consequences, sometimes unforeseen consequences, sometimes almost very obvious consequences. But this is one that has once again followed on from the current Conservative government obsession, um, in many ways, to seem, tough on immigration. Um, and this goes all the way back to when we were first joining the European Union. And this is one of the many things that broke up um, the monopolies that builders and plumbers used to have in the UK. A lot of people forget this, and ultimately, this is what we might end up going back to. Once they figure this out. In fact, wouldn't be surprised if this does end up becoming the case. Of course, during the 90s, we initially joined, the sort of the beginnings of the single market. Freedom movement sort of, became in, and then all of a sudden, you heard this massive complaint about Polish builders and Polish plumbers because they realized they can come to the UK and they can make more money working on a simple job that a UK plumber would charge 2 to 3 times more the amount of they would. Now, ultimately, this is because again they had these monopolies, these plumbers monopolies of, well, you stick to your patch, I'll stick to mine. If I get a quote from your patch, I'll say it's this much, and so on, to try and you know be a fair monopoly. And of course, along come these a lot of the sort of the first wave of the immigration through sort of freedom movement came from Poland, and it sort of destroyed it completely within sort of a couple of years. That was sort of gone from that point. And it wasn't just these sorts of things as well. It was also in a lot of catering had a bizarre um, way to it, and how that sort of affected sort of immigration. We'll talk about that in a moment. But before we do get to that, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page, to one donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And of course, as always, there is the YouTube thank you button. And of course, there's the Pony Club as well down below. You can also check out too. So, getting back onto this. So, I've had a very, very good opportunity to sort of know one of these sort of immigrants who first came over. Um, and he sort of ran his own sort of restaurant, and his whole background was he was sort of brought up, did his whole entire training, not only to become a chef, but to sort of work front of house as well. And it's the complete different mindset you see in this of Europeans do very much see not only working front of house in restaurants, but also in the kitchen as well. They see these as big sort of career progressions, whereas mostly in the UK, it's mainly seen as like the chef position is seen as like the way to go, and that front of house isn't really viewed as like a proper sort of full-time career. It's seen as more as a stopgap job before you move on to sort of something else. This is why most of the time you do tend to see people very young in like their like early teens, sort of early 20s doing these jobs. Most of the time, I know it tends to be the case, but in places like London, especially, you have seen because there is such competition in Europe, people from Europe who do those courses come to sort of London, either in again front of house or in the kitchen to do their beginnings, their starting career in the city, because there was so much opportunity for these. And it wasn't just in London; it was all over sort of bits, but mainly sort of London. And now, because of Brexit, the end of freedom of movement, and of course because of Rishi Sunak's new insistence that you now got to have an income, I think, according to this article that I saw from La Repubblica, or can't say how you say it now. Yes, La Repubblica, Italian newspaper. You've got to have at least a income of 45,000 euros a year to stay, and if you do not have that, well, you can't stay. And in a way, I suppose if this leaves you with a bit of an interesting dilemma. I mean, if you're not being paid that, you get a pay rise. But of course, not every restaurant is going to be able to afford those particular pay rise. And as a result, you have seen a lot of Italians who, especially in who work in the kitchens, the Italian restaurants, now start to leave London en masse. It's being referred to as the long goodbye in this case, and they have according to some of the sort of the interviews of some of these Italians and the people who used to work in these kitchens, they've seen this coming. Like they saw the referendum and thought that not too much stuff was going to be changed. They thought they would still be sort of working in these kitchens, have their jobs there. But as time has moved on, they have seen more and more sort of aggressive moves, sort of push them out. And to them, it's sort of a shame. You see this all over the country where immigration has really sort of changed sort of the character of many towns. Um, London, Lombard Street, named after, of course, the Lombards, because back in the sort of the 13th century, I think it was, named after all the sort of merchants and bankers that used to live on that street. You know, immigration has a very rich tapestry and affects all sorts of sort of walks of life. Um, but unfortunately, this is yet another unfortunate consequence of immigration. And I think you do see a lot, I mean, a lot, and you see it in the chat as well, of Europeans who are really angry at the UK for seeing sort of Brexit as a rejection of Europe. And I even have a friend um, from Belgium, and she's like, she loves coming to the UK. I think she's incredibly what we would call she's an Anglophile, very, very much an Anglophile. Loved coming to the UK. Hasn't been since um, sort of 2019 because she sort of viewed Brexit as sort of a rejection of her personally, and I'm like, no, 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 it was never a rejection of you personally, but that's how at least I have sort of heard it as sort of seeing that as a sort of a personal rejection. And then a lot of Europeans have taken this very, very hard, especially if they were like really like pro Anglophiles and sort of loved coming to sort of the UK to sort of visit and go on holiday here and that type of stuff. That's where I see sort of the biggest sort of anger sort of seemingly coming from. Um, but like I say, it was never sort of a rejection of the EU, of Europeans, or anything like that. Unfortunately, it was, well, a moment, shall we say, of brief stupidity, which will be corrected in course. It's already sort of going to happen eventually. We can see that with Labour sort of wanting to sort of repair sort of European, institutions, trying to deny it very heavily. We're not going to take you back into the single market. No, we would never do. We'll see. We'll see. As we've always said, the next Parliament is going to be sort of a chance to really have open discussions about Brexit. Well, we haven't seen that take place before, and I think those are going to happen in the next Parliament. Um, and we'll see what happens. But ultimately, as we've always said, our path does lead back to going back into the European Union. So, as always, thank you very much to watching, and of course, as always, do remember to click the like and the share, and of course, leave a comment down below. And we'll see you all next time.